And you are now live.
Thank you, Aisha. Welcome everyone to this evening's FBS chat. We have today with us Rayya Ghul, who we've had before. Thank you, Rayya, for joining us. Always lovely to see you. Lucie, Duncan, and Sarah Mousley, who I've never met before, so I'm really interested in finding out more about you. And my co-host, Kitch Burns. Thank you, Kitch, for spending some time with us today. The conversation tonight is around the book that our three guests have written together, Creating Positive Futures, Solution-Focused Recovery from Mental Distress, which is a really long title. It is a bit of a mouthful, but it sounds fantastic. But before we go into that, really nice, would be really interesting to know a bit more about the three people behind that book. And I know we've spoken to Rayya before, so maybe Sarah, how you came across the solution-focused approach and how it changed the way you work with clients and what field you were in.
Well, you're looking at the reason that I discovered solution-focused approach, and that is Rayya. Rayya's our mentor, and I went on a course that Rayya was leading, and learned all about the solution-focused approach, and it just really resonated with the way that I was working already, and it just added loads of extra skills and tools really into my practice. I was working as an occupational therapist in a adult mental health team, and just started using the solution-focused approach straight away. Having experienced the course that Rayya led, it was so inspiring, and well, you know Rayya, so
please. So, what did you notice with after the training and your sessions with your clients? What difference did you notice that pleased you?
Well, I had questions. I had questions that I could just pull out of the bag, which made a real difference in therapy, and got people thinking about their preferred futures and their miracles. And it just made a difference to the way that I worked and to my clients and how they experienced the OT that we were doing together.
And you said that it resonated with how you were already working. What was it that resonated with?
I think doing? Because occupational therapy is all about enabling people and independence and people sort of realizing their goals, and solution-focused therapy just feeds into that perfectly.
Yeah.
And Lucie, how did you come?
How did I come? Similar to Sarah, I went on a training a couple of days with Rayya, and I didn't have any expectations from it, but I always remember Rayya saying, think about a situation that's really, really stuck. And I thought about my relationship with my mother-in-law, which was horrendous. And Rayya did an exercise, which was asking me to see my mother-in-law as a person who was doing their best with another lens, and it was really, really powerful. And I thought, wow, this approach has got a lot of power, and I want to learn more about it. Do you remember, Rayya?
Yeah, I remember now you say it. I remember.
Oh, I thought Rayya will never unpick this one because this is a fixed problem. Then this is not going away. And the questioning just freed up new possibilities, and that really struck me. And and you also asked the main, I'm not quite sure what happened, but the main way it changed my practice was it allowed me to be human. I was working in a mental health team, and I was trained in quite a medical model, which has never felt very comfortable. And I've changed a lot since discovering solution-focused approach, but I think it allowed me to be more human and just ask human connected questions. Does that make sense? And I remember, yeah, I just remember a conversation I had with Rayya about feeling very sad in some conversations and feeling like I wanted to cry. And Rayya kind of said, it's okay to say that, really. But, you know, it freed up the conversations I was having and took it away from being an expert. That was the biggest shift for me. Not that I ever was an expert, but I was trained to think I might be.
Lucie, you, because I'm an allied health professional like you, a speech and language therapist, and I started working with older adults, and I'm interested in, because I think they can be, you know, having those powerful conversations with that group. I mean, what difference did it make to you with, you know, that sort of client group?
With older adults?
Yes, I mean...
Yeah, most of my experience has been with adults aged between 16 and 65.
Okay.
Sarah worked with older
Sarah
adults.
has done more, yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to answer that, Sarah?
Not really, because I didn't really use solution focused work. It was different. It was a different kind of work that I was doing with older adults. So it wasn't so much part of my practice in that field.
So Lucie, you said something quite interesting when you were talking to Rayya, and she said, imagine that they're doing their best, that they are doing the best that they can. Well, how did that change the way of interacting with your clients when you knew that they were actually trying their best?
I just think it changed my approach to listening to people's positions, and I'm not really sure of the answer to that. I was really interested in the time of, it's not so much talked about now, but customer, what was it, Rayya? The three: customer, complainant. Do you remember the three? And I know it's kind of old school solution focused work now, but at the time I was really interested in that. Did you guys familiar with that?
I can't remember the three things. Is someone is coming to complain.
Was it in Sue Kim Berg's work?
No, it was Charlie Johnson, I think. Was it? No. Lynn Johnson. That's it. Lynn Johnson, who's a man, who wrote about that. You know, sort of seeing that you've got people coming in who are there to complain, there to just have a look, and people there who are there to buy. So kind of, it's a way that you could think about where they're at in the conversation, so that you're not pushing too hard to someone who's not really ready.
So one of the things I took from that was, and I think we might talk about this example in the book, was we, you know, in those days, you know, 10 or so years ago more, there were a few people that were regular visitors at the mental health team, and nothing, whatever intervention, medical intervention you gave, occupational therapy, anxiety management, never made a difference. And I think having those conversations of the horrific journeys some of those people had lived through, and just acknowledging that they'd survived and done their best, and that was a powerful shift for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, kind of reframing and thinking about people's journeys and stories differently, and that in itself was really useful conversations to have, how people had, you know, survived and got through and managed their well-being and carried on being grandma, mum, and all the other things they had to be. That was early learning.
Yeah.
Lucie?
Yes.
How old is Millie, your oldest child?
She is 20 years old now.
So she was born while we were writing the book, so it's more than 10 years ago.
Well, I'm really bad with time. I forget my own age. But yes, a lot longer than 10 years, Rayya. Thank you.
Yeah.
Rayya, I think you say in the book, which by the way I have here, there were four babies born while you were writing this book.
Yeah, none of them were mine.
You started before us.
Yeah.
And a lot of flapjack eaten at our evening
Yes.
meetings.
So that's why at the end of the book there's a bonus recipe. You get, if you buy the book, you get a recipe.
You know, we started off with no intention of writing a book. Well, you may be asking us these questions. I may be speaking too soon. So Sarah and I were trying to find a different approach in the mental health field. That occupational therapists at the time had lots of deficit-based assessments. So you'd be looking at what people couldn't do rather than what they could do. Problem focused, you know, for any OTs listening, we had, we very much didn't like, oh, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. What's his name? The old OT boy, Ghul, who I really didn't like that approach. And we have COPM as well, Canadian Occupational Performance Measure, and we kind of weren't happy with them, and we wanted to write an assessment, really, to create a new assessment that really looked at people, drew on people's strengths. And we were talking this through with Rayya in the evening, and Rayya said this needs to be, you know, this needs to be turned into a book, and we need to write context around it. And Sarah and I were horrified, weren't we, Sarah?
I think it started off as an article, maybe for a magazine, and all of a sudden it grew into something much bigger.
So when so Lucie and Sarah, were you on different training courses with Rayya? Was it the same course?
Yeah,
different ones. Okay, so how did you guys keep in touch? What was the next?
Well,
how did that develop?
We were actually friends before this. We're all occupational therapists, and we were friends before this, weren't we? Over 20 years ago, Rayya and Sarah.
Yeah.
We were working in the same trust, but in different services.
Yeah.
Right.
We were working in community, and you were working in inpatient, Luce. And I think, Sarah, you were working in Dover, is that right?
Yeah, in the community in Dover.
You were in
So we came to Rayya as a bit of a supervisor, really, to help us put this assessment measure together, which she did, obviously, and then suggested that we needed to publish it. So that was the beginning.
As Rayya would.
Yes, as Rayya would.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So what was the next step then? So sorry, go on, Aish.
I think Kitch was going to say something as well. But
No, it was going to be more or less the same question of how it sort of, you know, it went out there and what you noticed as sort of people started kind of picking it up and maybe doing things differently.
Yeah, we ran a pilot study, didn't we, in the local trust, asking OTs to use it, and people did, and they welcomed it, and we got positive feedback. So that sort of spurred us on to to making it more accessible to other people, which involved writing content around it and instructions about how to use it. And yeah, that was really how it.
So we got feedback from OTs that were using it, and maybe some nurses, I can't remember. But some of the feedback I remember was these conversations were so fundamentally different to the clinical conversations that we'd had with patients, we'll call them animal, that the service users or people on the ward would just look in bemusement. Why? That's not a question I normally answer, and that was a huge shift, wasn't it, guys? Do you remember? And I love just what we wanted, really. People taken aback by that style of questioning that was so non-clinical and medicalized, that we were really excited by that shift at the time.
I mean, the measure is based on 25 different kind of areas that OTs would be interested in, which range from things like self-care and managing your home and managing your time, but also to things like assertiveness and decision-making and so on. So there are 25 sort of questions, but we wrote the questions, and the form we wanted it to be a bit more like, you know, when you're filling in one of those I mean, I suppose it's not somewhat common now, but at the time you would have like a magazine. You get magazines and they'd have quizzes in them.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
they would tell you something. And we kind of wanted it to be more like that. So, the first question is, I'm able to talk to people. So they were all positively framed. And then you would answer definitely, maybe, sometimes, and not at all. So that you kind of tick which one is that. So it had this kind of we wanted it to have this kind of friendly feel to it. And but at the same time, each of those questions related specifically to an area, domain that you'd be interested in mental health and OT. But you could then use those 4 categories as a scale to ask solution focused questions. And that's how we kind of put it into motion, so that although it just appeared like an ordinary assessment, you had this ability to feed in these solution focused questions. And kind of what that meant was that normally when you do an assessment and sit down with someone and do an assessment or get them to fill it in, it's for you, and it's for the agency. It's a part of what you've got to do in order to kind of fulfill your role, and to normally use that assessment to sort of pore over it and create formulation and then decide some kind of treatment plan. So it had that same feel to it, but in reality, what was happening was you started doing the therapy immediately. You asked the first question, and actually by the end, you were getting people to say, "Well, where do you want to start? Which of these things do you want to start working on with me?" And you'd already spent an hour with them, creating developing a rapport and starting to find out about them, focusing on what they could do. So it had an amazingly different effect than the normal kind of assessment process, where people are just being asked to talk about their problems the whole time.
And I think, assessment's one of my bugbears. So I'm so pleased that you have done it in a way, that other allied health professions can pick it up and use it, which is unusual. Often they can be so specific to our different areas, and as we know, it overlaps. But also just the kind of the common language, which I think is so important. It encourages us as colleagues to work together. So you move away from this jargon-free stuff. And I think, what's really clear in the book is that you don't have that. And I think that's a, real strength.
We were really, really passionate about that. When I was an OT in training, Kielhofner, sorry to go on about this, talked about recapitulation of autogenesis. And I was thinking, what on earth? So I think it took me 2 years into my own.
Lucie.
Oh,
that is not.
Who did that, Rayya?
Oh, I can't remember. It was one of the very early ones. It was the skills, tasks, and roles person.
Oh, I'm sorry, OTs, for being so uneducated.
Well,
but
habituation and volition and whatever.
Oh, either way, I thought, I've been an OT student for 2 years, and I'm trying to work out this language, and how helpful is that? Because the nurses we were talking to, the speech therapists, it meant nothing to them. It felt, I'm really passionate about keeping things simple and speaking in a language that is human and people understand. And
so that's really nice. Yeah, that's really nice. That appeals to you. Because that's really what we set out to do, to make it accessible and jargon free.
And then because we're OTs, and OTs love a worksheet, we created a worksheet for every single question plus some general ones, and they're all in the book as well. So and those are things that you can actually give to people, and they can go away and do it on their own. And actually, Sarah, I don't know if you want to tell that story about that person who you gave the worksheet that had like one question on it. What do you want to see different? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember it clearly. He was quite a young guy. He was probably late teens, maybe early 20s. And I was working with him, and I said, "Oh, do you fancy doing doing a little bit of homework, something to think about before we meet again next time. And the question, I said, if you can have a think about this question, how would you like to see? How will you know when you don't need to come for therapy anymore? And he said, oh yeah, I'll have a think about that. And within a couple of days, there was this envelope in my pigeonhole, and inside this envelope was a list of a list of everything that would be different and how he would know. And he'd written his own treatment plan, and it was absolutely, it was mind-boggling, because in this list was every step that he needed to achieve in order to not need OT anymore. And so, you know, he was sort of halfway there by that point. It was absolutely incredible. And he was obviously so inspired by the question that he didn't want to wait until the following week when we had the next appointment. He wanted me to have that information straight away. So yeah, that was amazing.
And he was following those kind of the pointers, wasn't he? So what would he notice? What would others notice?
Yes.
And that really helped frame it for him.
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, it was subdivided. That's right, actually, Luce. Yeah.
Actually, just on that, Lucie, you said framing again. Someone just asked, what difference did it make to your clients when you're reframing? I think you said earlier on about when you're reframing.
Actually, reframing sounds a bit psychodynamic, doesn't it? And you know, I don't know if it's really as clever as that, really. But do you mean the story I was telling earlier about listening to a story and? Well, actually, I think it's more kind of listening and validating, really. You know, a bit like the conversation about my mother-in-law doing her best.
I've got to laugh. I'm sorry.
So I think reframing's much too clever than anything that I do. I think it's just having that human conversation and really listening and say, you know, asking questions, you know, how did you get through that? And what did you notice about yourself that helped you through that really difficult abusive relationship? And, you know, just simple solution focused questions help someone make sense of their story. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but I think you need to give yourselves a bit more credit. Because actually,
I use that exercise in every training that I run there. I always do it. I've got two exercises that I always do, which is one is the moaning one, which everyone knows, and the other one is that one, because basically think of your most difficult client, and I get people to talk about them to their partner, and then I ask them how they feel, and they usually say frustrated, angry, upset, blah blah, you know. And then I say, okay, now talk to your partner about that person and as somebody who is doing their best. And it's really interesting because the first conversation is like, and then the second conversation is really gentle and reflective. And then I ask people how they feel at the end of that conversation. And they say things like, well, actually sad comes up because then they start to connect and empathize, but also say things like hopeful, surprised, you know, and so on, and it's a really, really powerful exercise. And I think as Lucie says, the reason I do it is because that's what I realized that happened to me when I started talking to my clients, which is what Lucie and Sarah are saying. It's all of a sudden you're just like awake to the extraordinary possibilities that are presented by the person in front of you when you move out of that deficit frame and that professional kind of training where you're looking all the time for it to fit in with your your professional framework of problems, and then you suddenly just start listening to them.
And Ryan, that people don't need fixing.
Yeah,
you know, that it's kind of obvious, really, but we're almost trained as OTs to, you know, what is the problem and what's the care plan going to be to fix the problem. And I kind of and so I found myself as a young OT panicking, thinking, I don't know how to help this person. Can't remember the technique that will help with a psychosis or anxiety. And I think since doing Rayya's training, or however long ago then, Rayya, 30 years? Not that long, is it? I think I just became more relaxed, that I don't need to fix anyone, and absolutely I shouldn't, and who am I to? But by people talking and realizing that along the way they've had strengths and been able to, it took a lot of pressure off me, and was just a lovely thing to watch people tell you how they got to where they were now, and had been a real part of their own recovery journey and all that.
Which I think is really actually difficult when, we're working in the medical model. It's difficult to make that shift from being a fixer to actually a facilitator, which is the way I see it. But I think, we've all done this, OTs, speech and language therapists, these sort of action plans we feel we have to come up with, and goals. And I know you love the word goals, Rayya. But, going back to your book, I think that whole message of if you acknowledge, if you validate, then you invite descriptions, and that's what we need as therapists, particularly in that setting, to get people to describe the world that they live in. And you and I, and these everyday activities that they do, we need them to give that description first, rather than kind of, and I think your questions do that very well, and they're very simple and not too many questions. I think the temptation is also to put too many questions, and I think in the worksheets, I think there was one I picked out. It was on talking, of course, that was the one I like, but it's something about when do I feel comfortable talking, and what difference is it about those times, which in the setting, people would probably say, oh, well, somebody's being nice to me. But then you say, what am I doing differently? And of course, that for me is the key question, that people take ownership of, and then that's it. And I think those three questions, that's all you need. You don't, that's sort of not to clutter. And I think that in worksheet, that's really nice that you've done that.
Not to get too kind of OT lecture-ish, but one of the things, and if there are any OTs watching, one of the things that we do, is one of our core skills is called activity analysis, or in modern times, I've just seen Jeff's comment next in OT terms, we talk about activity analysis or occupational analysis. And that's kind of the core thing that we do, which is the sort of nitty-gritty and analysing the tiny bits of people's lives, so that we can see the gap where we can sort of go in. And what we all just said, it's like when you get someone to answer the miracle question and talk about their ideal day in depth, they're just doing their own activity analysis. It's like, that's why it's relaxing. It's like, okay, you do it. You tell us, what will you be doing differently? And a lot of people in the solution-focused therapy world talk a lot about what will you be noticing. But actually, I think for OTs, we do like to talk to people about what they'll be doing and then noticing about that.
And it was, I think Sarah was the example that Sarah gave. It was almost that question of what would need to happen, or what will you notice so you don't have to come back and see me anymore. And I guess that must have been a whole complete reverse from the way that you guys used to work. And what difference did it make to you and your clients? It must have been so liberating.
Yeah, and I was thinking about when Rayya was describing the measure with the 25 questions, sometimes you didn't get through the 25 questions because the important conversation happened way before the end of the 25 questions, and therefore you didn't complete it, and that was okay as well. So yeah, I love the flexibility of it.
Sorry, Sarah.
And the important conversation that was important for that person may have happened in question 2 or question 3, and therefore there was no need to pursue all the rest of the measure.
And sometimes, so we'd ask people where they wanted to start, didn't we? It wouldn't necessarily go from the top.
Yeah.
I remember when you talk about it being liberating, do you remember Rayya and Sarah? There was a person who'd used services in Folkestone, and she had years of therapy, of psychotherapy, anxiety management, lots of pottery groups and things that we used to do. And she was seen to be a very difficult client and very entrenched in her. These aren't my words, I'm just quoting how people were described at the time. And probably 10 years or so, every medication under the sun, too much at times, and asking her about her story and how she'd got through the difficult things that have occurred in her life. So I think she had 2 sessions, and this wasn't with me, right? It was with our colleague, wasn't it, who was also Scott. And at the end of 2 sessions, where the solution-focused approach was just to say, that sounds really difficult. How did you do that? And anyway, 2 sessions, 2 hours. This is the most incredible thing. But when you know this woman's history, she said, "Thank you very much, because nobody has ever listened to me before. And I don't think I need to come back here again." And it was almost, I mean, that it was mind-blowing from the amount, for me, that was mind-blowing. And
it was that validation, wasn't it, that happened in those 2 hours. Had never happened before.
No, because I think
Scott had read it in a book where Steve DeShazer had sort of talked about doing this with someone, where all he did was say, "That's really awful. How did you cope?" So he just decided to try it as an experiment. And I remember he was actually visibly shaken when he was talking about what happened. The fact that after the second session, she just went, "Right, well, I don't think I need to come and see you anymore." It was almost, you know, and I think the reason is, and I think we've all talked about this to each other, is that when you start using the solution focused approach and you see the effect it has on people, you start to think back to all the people that you saw and who maybe were in the service much longer than they maybe needed to be, like this woman, or people that you just wanted to call back and say, come back, you know, I can do it better now. And I think when something like that happens, it's actually quite shocking. It's quite, in a way, disturbing to think, what have I been doing for all this time that this has shifted everything?
Yeah, that was an early thing that stuck with me for the approach.
Kids, Joe and I really want to hear about behind the scenes when you are writing this fantastic and useful book. Question A, what is it like to work with Rayya? And question B, any stories you can tell us?
Okay, well, we had lots of fun, didn't we?
We did.
We'd spend half the evening nattering, wouldn't we, and catching up and eating flapjack.
We were living the life.
It took 7 years because they kept having babies, and then there was all the kind of you turned me into some bizarre parenting guru, didn't you?
Yeah. Absolutely. So we had to do every evening. And I think that's why it took 7 years, because we'd meet up once a week, wouldn't we, roughly, for a while? Yeah. And spend most of the time chatting about Rayya giving us parenting advice and talking about our lives and work. And then, so it took a long time, but it was enjoyable.
And then our publisher kept telling us we had to do more things. Do you remember? We were like, right, now. And then he'd go, no, you need this. And we'd be like, oh, really? And then, the next thing. And then he'd go, no, you need this. And we were like, oh, do we have to? Remember there was
the case studies, I think, was a sort of afterthought, wasn't it? And that was like a third, that was a massive section. Yeah.
And you got your bit on supervision as well, which is another thing very close to my heart. So that's an important bit as well, isn't it?
Yeah, that was Sarah and Lucie had been doing stuff on both CPD. I think it's Lucie, you did the stuff on both of you actually. I can't remember who did what, but I remember that Sarah and Lucie had done lots of work on CPD, using tools for your own CPD, and then for supervising others. So.
But you know, we laughed a lot. I can tell you the most hilarious story of eventually when we got the book published, and we went to London to meet Richard, and the publisher.
Richard. Mm-hmm.
Oh, we know Richard.
Oh, you know Richard.
We know Richard.
Oh, well. Yeah. So lovely evening at him and his wife's house. And we had some nibbles, didn't we? And we were chatting away. It was all very relaxed outside. And we'd dressed up, hadn't we, Rayya? We'd dressed up a little bit. And you'd worn a lovely white dress. And Richard's wife at the time, do you remember those shoes that were like boats and rocked? It was good for your posture. What were they called? Rocky trainers. So they were curved at the bottom.
Yeah, I remember.
Anyway, so we all had some red wine. She came out with the red wine.
The apple tree, weren't we? We're sitting outside.
Yeah.
It was a summer evening outside, sitting under an apple tree.
And then she came out with a tray with 3 glasses of red wine and started losing her balance and rocking on her.
Well.
She what, Rayya?
She had 2 bottles of red wine on that tray. It's a massive tray. Plus the glasses.
So it was like, you know, those disasters in slow motion, and she was very near Rayya. And anyway, toppled, and the wine went all over Rayya.
So she's now wearing a red dress.
White.
Yeah.
No, but it's still red, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then we were all trying to be very polite, and she took Rayya up to her bedroom, and Rayya came down with her dressing gown on, which was a fluffy dressing gown, and me and Sarah just were crying, weren't we, Sarah? All the way home we cried with laughter. I think
we felt slightly under pressure because we were meeting the publisher, and I know Richard's very laid back, but we were all sort of on our best behaviour, so it wasn't really till we left that we could fully kind of release these pent up feelings of laughter. So we spent the whole journey.
That dressing gown was red, silky, but it had teddy bears in it. Do you remember it?
Oh, that's right.
That's right. And I put my white dress into a bag of water so that it wouldn't dry. And that's right, because you were driving, Sarah. I remember you had that big car, and you were driving, and we were on the M25 going round. And we were up to this point, we'd just been very polite. And I remember that. I was about 10 minutes on the M25, and all of a sudden you were like incapacitated. And you laughed for about half an hour in that girly way where you just cannot stop laughing, however hard you try, because we were sitting each other off. I'll never forget that. So
I think I had to pull over at one point because I couldn't actually see because I was crying.
Yeah.
Do you still have the dressing gown?
No.
Can you imagine if she just pulled it up now? That would be incredible.
I think we did have a picture somewhere.
Oh yeah, we did have a picture.
That's right.
Feel free to share. You have my, you know who I am. Email it
Paul
over.
I think Paul took the picture. Me, something that I can't remember, but was funny.
We did have evidence.
I've got this.
That was fun.
One thing that's stuck in my head over this conversation is 7 years, which sounds like an awfully long time for a project. And you 3 sound like you had great fun together anyway, and it would have been a nice reason to meet up every month or so. But what kept you going? Why was it so important? After 7 years, I think I'd have given up.
Mm. Yeah, I don't remember it feeling that long. I think because it was interspersed with babies and probably, yeah. Yeah, it was actually really nice to have a project going on that wasn't about children, and it was something really nice to have a focus, to meet up in the evenings to really keep my brain working.
And I think we just really believed in it. We're all really passionate about it, and you know the pilot studies and it it took a long time, obviously, a bit longer than.
Yeah, I mean, you got to understand, we were just, I mean, I was working part-time, and as I said, Sarah and Lucie, we were just, we were really very much just ordinary OTs. I mean, but, we were, people often think, you see, authors, they've always been amazing people. And it's like, actually, we are just ordinary OTs. And we came up with this idea, and we did it. We were lucky enough to encounter Solution Focus. And we did try for a bit to get it standardized, didn't we? And kind of do the whole like put it out there along with Mohost and Copam and all of the other tools. And we did try very hard to do that. And in the end, I think because we weren't kind of, I mean, I wasn't working in the university at that point. It just became really hard. And I think we did try to do things to make it more, kind of the sort of things that is more expected by the OT world, very serious kind of, guys and all of that sort of stuff. The fact that loads and loads of people just loved using it and were using it and having great results with it kind of wasn't enough for the OT world, certainly at that time. I mean, I think it's really interesting now when you hear from OTs, you hear them saying things like, "Oh, it's one of my," we were on like the top 10 OT books last year, and
wow.
You're up against people from big universities who've been researching OT for years, and writing books for years, and there are, we were in the same kind of group as people who we kind of idolized in the kind of OT world. It's like they were the big shot. It's very odd to find yourself in that position, but it does seem that actually OTs who are working, who come across the book and start using it, do really value it. So I think we believed in it and really wanted to get it out there. Because I think we were just so passionate about what it was doing for our clients. We wanted others to see it. And I think a lot of us were fed up of the kind of medical model stuff that was really prevalent about 20 years ago. It was all the OTs were trying to be like scientists and like very scientific and everything. And I think, OT's roots are not in that kind of biomedical sort of area. They're in a much more ethical kind of human practice. So I think we all also wanted to kind of go back to that, because that's kind of why a lot of us have gone into it in the first place. OT.
But thinking back with the 7 years, which I don't think I was really aware of at the time, I think, Rayya, you must have been the one with the patience. Lucie and I alternately announcing that we were having another baby, and you thinking, oh no, that's going to set us back.
And the reason I asked the question is because I'm in awe of the fact that you had given, although it was dispersed obviously in between, and it's easy to lose sight of something that you're really passionate about, but you guys stuck with it for 7 years, and that's what I find amazing. I think that's fantastic. So what do you, sorry, go on.
Sure. After you, Joe.
No, I was just going to ask, if I'm a new OT and I pick up your book, what are you hoping I would take away from it? What is it that you want me to learn, to understand?
It's a good question. I don't train OTs. I'm not sure what the current syllabus is. Rayya would have a better idea than me. I hope it's not quite as medical model and jargonized as it was when I was training, however many years ago. I'm feeling old now. I can't even lost track of time. But I hope it would give an OT confidence to just have some really useful conversations without feeling the need to be an expert and fix people.
Yeah.
Sarah, is that the shared vision that was hopefully somewhere where you didn't feel pressurized to be an expert, but were able to still be able to help and support?
Yeah, I think that would be the most useful thing as a newly qualified OT when you're feeling, or newly qualified anything, or not qualified at all, in fact. yeah, just to have that talk, the tools, the questions to ask, to put the person you're talking with as the expert, which they are.
And I kind of
do you think your own sort of since that time when you wrote it in 2007, I think, when it got published, wasn't it? And up to now, I'm kind of interested in what's changed for you. And I mean, I imagine the book is stayed the same, because obviously the core bits don't need changing. Have you come to appreciate particular bits even more yourselves in how you do solution focused practice?
Well, one of the reasons that I think it's come to people's attention again is because Richard very kindly gave us permission to publish it as an ebook. BT Press doesn't really do ebooks, I don't think, but we really wanted it to be an ebook because there's an awful lot of OTs in English-speaking countries around the world for whom buying the physical copy was really hard. So we wanted it to, and also I think because we won that kind of poll, it was like, oh, people really want it. So it kind of spurred us into action. And so when I was kind of working with the designer and we were looking to see what needed to be updated, we kind of, you're right, Kij, it didn't seem like there was a huge amount that needed updating. Of course, we could do another one, but to be honest, that'd take another 7 years probably. And there were some little things that we had to change, certainly amongst the acknowledgements. People had died, for example. So, somebody who was very supportive was no longer there, and of course the people who were supporting us now. So yeah, and the recipe's still there, which obviously I think everybody who might be thinking of buying the book as an ebook, it's available from lulu.com, by the way, is that the recipe's still there for Sarah's the best flapjacks in the entire world. So
I just want flapjacks now.
Yeah.
That's where my mind's gone. So we've got time for 2 more questions, Kij and Joe, and then we'll ask if our guests would like to ask anything.
Okay. Joe, you go first. I'm going to think of one.
I'm just thinking. Obviously, it's now in that ebook format, and hopefully more and more people will be able to access it. Have you guys got any plans of any collaborations moving forward? Is that no, 7 years was enough? Or do you hope to do anything moving forward?
We talked about second edition, didn't we, guys? And Rayya's a little bit further away now for us to go and eat flapjack around her kitchen table. I would love to do. I work in university, as Rayya does now, supporting students' well-being. I would love to do a version for universities with worksheets, and yeah, because I've been kind of working on that, and I would love to do that. But
let's do it, Luce.
I'll support you, Lucy.
Don't start again, Rayya. We'll be here in 7 years' time. You tell me to write another book.
Yeah, but now you don't have to wait. You have Teams, you have Zoom, you just eat flapjacks while you're on the phone with a glass of wine or
perfect.
I think it would be really nice to do that. I've used the worksheets with some students, and health and well-being in universities is a big agenda. So if you were to ask me, that's what I would like to do going forward, resource, and also, you know, along that line of universities, I think in some of the work we do, we make adjustments for students so they can go through the 3 years without having to give a presentation. But we don't actually help students think about what needs to happen for you to do that presentation, guys, because in 3 years' time, you're going to be in employment. So there's a lot of solution focus that could be applied and would really help academics and student support services help students build their skills for, again, you know, university, from my observation, can also be a little bit deficit based. So we make allowances. I don't know if you agree, Rayya, having experienced it. So there's one idea.
Well, you heard it here on FBS chat. They are getting together via Zoom over a glass of wine and eating their nipples with their flapjacks, and we're going to see them again doing something.
I feel slightly nervous.
Sarah,
Rayya,
the way she is. I was going to just give Sarah a chance to promote her book and her business.
Oh, Sarah.
Oh, that's kind. Well, it's not solution focused, so it might not have a place here.
Of course it does.
Yes, it's the multisensory reminiscence activity book, and it's 52 group sessions for use in older adult settings, incorporating activities and reminiscence and cognitive stimulation.
Wow.
So that's my new sort of avenue of work. Not directly solution focused, but
have you started writing the book then?
no, it's published.
Oh, it's published. Sorry.
Yes.
And how long did that take?
Not 7 years.
Yes, it was Lucie and Rayya holding you back on the first one, wasn't it?
So what are reminiscence activities?
Well, it's they're group. We run group sessions in care homes and incorporate reminiscence discussions. We run each group session on a theme. So the theme might be spring, and we incorporate music, we incorporate food. We try and make it as multisensory as possible. So things to smell, things to taste, things to listen to, things to touch. Hoping for the people in our group to be able to recall positive times in the past and talk about how things are now. Yeah, it's very well received, but obviously we've been a bit out of action for the last year, almost a year. Yeah,
it sounds like a wonderful activity as a group.
It's really, really rewarding. Yeah, love it. So we wrote these group sessions and thought it'd be a nice thing to share. So they were made into a book. Yeah, I wasn't coming on here to plug this book.
No.
Well, while you're here, why not?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's the whole point of it.
I'm just looking for my copy so I could hold it up. I'm not sure where it is.
Yes, and I haven't got one to hand either. I wrote it with
There we are.
No,
Sarah's book.
Yeah.
Sarah's book.
I co-wrote it with another OT called Sophie Jopling. So you can find it on Amazon, or it's published by Jessica Kingsley.
And have you watching these groups in actions where they're reminiscing must be a wonderful feeling to see their faces.
Absolutely, it really is. Yeah. And you think you're going to work to give something, but actually you get so much back. And the feedback and the conversations that have happened in our groups are part of the book, because people have informed the way that we run our groups, and that's all sort of fed into improving the sort of templates for the group. So yeah, it's a sort of joint effort between we're the facilitators, but people that come to the group are really the people who've given us so much of content.
Brilliant. Sounds fantastic. Rayya, what are you up to?
Well, a bit like Lucie, actually. I now work in a university. One of the things that I've been doing is teaching student pals, the peer-assisted learning, or students that support each other, their peer supporters. I've been teaching them solution focus so they can use it on each other. And that's been really, really well received. And that's building on my other work, which is teaching mental health service users to use it and talk to each other. So like removing the need for myself at all, because obviously I haven't got time to do these things. So I'll just teach them to do it. But they do it so much better anyway, because they know they've got that they're not burdened by the professional training. Actually, what I want to say is I just want to say, I mean, I am a bit of a name, I know, in the solution focused world, but that book, The Creating Positive Futures, I'm so thrilled that people are getting to meet Lucie and Sarah, because really Lucie and Sarah, their thoughtfulness, and they are brilliant OTs, and their thoughtfulness about how to really put solution focus together with OT is really from them, actually. I mean, I became very much more interested. I mean, I am interested in the both, but I don't think I was ever as good an OT as them. And I think that because they're such brilliant OTs, no, it's true. It is true. And I really want to give them credit, and that's why I'm just really pleased, Aisha, that you invited all three of us on, so that people can meet Sarah and Lucie and see the authors.
Oh, it's made me feel a bit choked. Thank you, Ryan.
Flapjacks! So suppose in 7 years' time, 7 years seems to be a theme here. Suppose in 7 years' time we would all together again, what would you be hoping to be saying in a short word phrase of, I don't know, is it about the solution focused maybe in OT, or is it wider than that, what will have happened, what you're hoping for between now and then?
No pressure.
Yeah, well, it looks like we might have agreed to write something for university students. I think that would be a great project. Yeah.
I think it would, and I don't think it would take 7 years, Raya. I think we can speed up.
Let's be ambitious.
All right, we'll come back in a year and tell you how we're getting on, Aisha. I mean, I really want to see more services like Takeoff, where mental health service users are using solution focus to talk to each other and manage and create services for each other, because I know it works. I know it works. It's absolutely phenomenal.
So within by the time we've reached the 7 years, you would have had all three of you accomplish so much more than what you already have. Putting your heads together again over, a glass of wine and the flapjacks, and we'll be reading another book.
Let's just remember that I know Jeff made that comment earlier, but in 7 years' time,
I'll remind everyone of the comment.
I think I'm going to be 71.
Well, 37 according to Joe.
kind of a level of madness that I've never contemplated. Very bad. Yeah, 71.
Wow.
It's all right. We'll celebrate. No, I don't think anything can hold you back, Raya, and quite rightly.
No.
And I think what Raya was saying about teaching the young people to have those conversations with other young people, and almost like a blotting paper effect. And it's kind of like what we're trying to do with the family support groups. Parents have those solution conversations with their children and learn that kind of language, and hopefully that will spread out.
The funniest thing happened on Saturday. Sorry, Joe. When a parent was distressed, so I had to put her and a volunteer into a breakout room, and a new parent had arrived, and there were 3 parents that they'd already joined the workshops the previous week. And I said, right, can you guys just have a conversation while I just deal with something, because I had to call a referrer. And I heard one of the parents say to this new parent, so what will be your best hopes from these workshops?
Wow.
And if that were to happen, what difference would it make? And she just went on, and the other parents started joining in. And then this parent was very, talking about her experiences and the challenges that she's facing. Yes, that must have been very difficult for you. I actually do understand, because my son, blah, 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 blah. However, if you woke up tomorrow And she went in, and I was like,
Whoa.
so I might as well just leave, really.
Yeah.
And that is the whole point. It's educating others to just use it so it becomes normalized language to them. It's nothing, it's just go off in everyday life and have these sorts of conversations and just make it normal to you. And it was just brilliant how they took the session. It was absolutely amazing. So I'm if any of them are watching, and I know one of them is, I am very proud of you.
Yeah.
Very proud of you. Keep going. Keep taking the sessions for me. Any last comments from our guests, and then we'll go over to Kij and Joe?
No,
We've
just
actually run out of time. Sorry.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. It's really nice to meet you. Really enjoyed it.
I've not stopped smiling all the way through. You've made what a lovely conversation. Thank you so much, everyone, for spending that time with us. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
And Jeff Chang says thanks.
Man, a few words.
He says thanks. Bless him. Yeah, but I mean, Jeff is brilliant. He watches nearly all of the FBS chats. I absolutely love him. And Rayya, it's always great to see you. You are an inspiration to all. And Kij, thank you so much for agreeing to be co-host. I thought it was a very good match, and it really, really was. Anything you'd like to say before we say au revoir? Oh, have you frozen? Oh, can you hear me?
You're breaking up a bit. Yeah.
Anything you'd like to say, Kij, before we say bye-bye to everybody?
No, just congratulations to the authors, and keep on acknowledging and validating, because it's great.
And Jeff just said, my favorite way to spend the lunch hour these days here in Canada.
Lunch. Wow.
So we have, we're keeping him occupied. He's not lonely. He's got us. Say that again, Rayya?
I'm just saying to Jeff, say hi to Tracy.
Say hi to Tracy, Jeff.
Jeff and Tracy came and stayed in Edinburgh with me.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So I got
did you knit anything for Tracy?
It's a lovely jumper, but
and that is it. We are actually at the end of FBS chat. Thank you so much for our guests and our beautiful co-host and Joe. We do love our FBS chats because we get to meet fantastic people, new people from the solution focus world, and well, it doesn't have to be from the solution focus world, but most of the time it is. But next week on FBS chat, we have Hey Soon Moon on Wednesday the 17th. At 7 p.m. UK time, GMT. I've got to remember that because some people message me to say, is that GMT? I've got to get used to this whole way of working. So next week is Hey Soon Moon, and thank you very much to everybody. Can I just ask you guys to just stay there for a couple of minutes? Do not touch anything. And the rest of you, see you later.
Bye.